When people try to defend iron-fisted rule in Africa, they often point to one example. They say, "Look at China. They shut down protests, forced discipline, made painful choices, and now they stand tall as a global superpower." And that version of the story sounds convincing because it contains a piece of the truth. Yes, China today is powerful. It's home to vast cities lit like galaxies, bullet trains that slice through the land, and industries that dominate world markets. Hundreds of millions of citizens escaped hunger and poverty in one generation. That kind of transformation is exactly what every developing nation dreams of achieving. But what almost nobody talks about is the story before the success. And that part of the story matters, especially now when so many leaders keep repeating lines like, "We can rise like China," without ever explaining the painful, violent, and extremely costly history behind it. To understand how China reached the place it is today, you need to go all the way back to the beginning. The year is 1949, and China is nothing like the powerhouse you see now. It was weak, poor, fractured, and carved up by foreign powers for more than a century. Britain controlled ports. Japan seized entire regions. France, Russia, and others sliced pieces for themselves. The Chinese people were second-class citizens in their own land. And by the end of World War II, the country was on its knees. Invasions, famine, and brutal civil war had drained the nation dry. Villages had no electricity, no clean water, no future. Millions were dead. Millions more were lost, traumatized, furious, and humiliated. That was the China Mao Zedong walked into. Mao presented himself as a revolutionary savior, a leader who promised never again. He told the people China would rise, that outsiders would never again dictate China's destiny. After taking power in 1949, he promised equality, food, dignity, unity, and a new beginning. And the people believed him because they were done with warlords, done with foreign interference, and ready to follow anyone who claimed he could rebuild the nation. But Mao didn't just want to rebuild China. He wanted to erase old China. He wanted to rewrite culture itself. Traditions, beliefs, family structures, even the way people thought, were targeted for elimination. His mission was to create an entirely new citizen, someone who obeyed without hesitation, someone who believed without question. Almost immediately, Mao tightened control across every corner of the country. His first big project was an anti-corruption drive, something he described as cleaning the revolution. At the start, it sounded noble. Fight bribery, punish tax evaders, remove old elites. But very quickly, the campaign turned into nationwide paranoia. Workers were encouraged to report their bosses. Neighbors spied on neighbors. Siblings accused siblings. Cities held massive public humiliation events called struggle meetings, where the accused were dragged into open squares, forced to confess, insulted, beaten, and stripped of everything they owned. Some were pushed to suicide. Others chose to take their own lives before being dragged into the public arena. Historians like Frank Dichter documented how thousands died from shame and terror. Then, in 1956, Mao briefly opened the door to free expression. He announced, "Let 100 flowers bloom," inviting teachers, writers, and intellectuals to voice criticisms. And for the first time in years, people spoke honestly about what was going wrong. But that tiny window was a trap. Within months, Mao reversed course, calling those same critics, rightists, and enemies of the revolution. The anti-rightist campaign followed, destroying lives overnight. Hundreds of thousands were fired, denounced, imprisoned, or sent to labor camps. China learned a chilling lesson. Even honesty could get you killed. Fear became national oxygen. But Mao wanted more speed, more ambition, more control. In 1958, he launched what he called the Great Leap Forward, one of the most catastrophic experiments ever forced on a population. He promised that China would outproduce Britain in steel and grain within a decade. And because fear ruled the land, the entire nation began marching in a direction almost no one dared to question. Villagers were forced to abandon private farms and move into massive communal collectives. Families had to eat in giant shared canteens, sleep in dormitories, and surrender their animals, tools, and cooking pots. Mao said private life was selfish, and everything personal had to serve the nation. Rural communities were ordered to build backyard furnaces to produce steel, melting down their own pots, pans, and farm equipment. But the metal they produced was useless scrap. Local officials were terrified of disappointing Mao, so they lied on paperwork, inflating grain and steel numbers to look successful. The fake reports fooled the central government into seizing grain from starving villagers to feed cities and impress foreign powers. Mao wanted the world to believe China was thriving, even when China was starving. Then came one of the deadliest famines in human history. Between 1959 and 1961, tens of millions died in silence. Crops failed. Grain was stolen from the countryside. Villagers chewed grass, bark, leather, and wild roots to survive. Parents made impossible choices. Some sold their children, some abandoned them, some watched them starve. In the most extreme cases, documented in works like Yang Jisheng's Tombstone, cannibalism occurred. Researchers analyzing census data estimate between 15 and 30 million deaths. Others place it closer to 45 million. 45 million lives lost, not because of war or natural disaster, but because of political pride, fear, lies, and one man's refusal to accept reality. Instead of slowing down, Mao doubled down. He blamed nature, he blamed pests. And so began the Four Pests campaign, a disastrous attempt to exterminate rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. Millions of sparrows were killed. Children climbed trees to destroy nests. Families smashed pans together for hours to scare birds to death. And with sparrows nearly wiped out, locust populations exploded. Crops that survived the original famine were devoured. The famine deepened, the suffering grew, and Mao still would not acknowledge his mistakes. By the early 1960s, even senior Communist Party leaders saw the country falling apart. Deng Xiaoping and Liu Shaoqi pushed for emergency reforms. They restored small private farming, told officials to stop lying about harvests, and slowly ended the famine. But Mao viewed their success as betrayal. He believed China was losing its revolutionary fire, and in 1966, he launched the Cultural Revolution, a violent nationwide purge designed to crush anyone who had questioned him. Millions of young people formed the Red Guards. They stormed schools, attacked teachers, destroyed books, smashed temples, burned photographs, and even desecrated graves. Families turned against each other. Neighbors reported neighbors. Children betrayed parents. Factories collapsed. Universities shut down for years. Millions were persecuted, displaced, or killed. And once again, Mao watched all of it from safety, calling the destruction revolutionary energy. China consumed itself from within. By the time Mao died in 1976, the nation was exhausted, damaged, traumatized, economically ruined, and spiritually empty. Ordinary people had nothing. The same youths who shaved their teachers' heads and destroyed their communities ended up just as poor as the people they attacked. That was the real cost of China's road to modern power. The story of China's rise isn't just about bullet trains and skyscrapers. It's also a story written in silence, fear, and unimaginable loss. Understanding that full story is crucial before anyone tries to copy it. Thanks for watching.